We're live.
Oh, yes. Welcome to the Gainzcast, everybody. We got an extra special guest today. Extra special guest. Somebody, you don't hear enough about these guys, Matt. You don't. Because these are the guys who make it happen. We always hear about bodybuilders. We always hear about, Phil Heath. And we hear about the Generation Irons and this and that. And all the external stuff, right?
You get the competitors and the media, but you never get the guys behind the scenes.
It's like having a Bentley. Like the shell's great, but there's no engine. There's no engine. It's just an empty shell of a vehicle. This is the engine that powers everything we're about in this industry. Without this man right here and people like him, there would be no bodybuilding. And I want to introduce you guys to a guy I've known for years. That's Beano Wallace, man. What's up, Beano?
Hey, how we doing over there?
Doing well, man. So I got to ask first, is your real name Beano?
So my real name is Brian, but Beano came from a nickname when I was born. My family called me Little Bambino.
Ah, is that Babe Ruth or is that just an Italian thing?
Just part of an Italian thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was passed down through the generations. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my wife's Italian. It's I'm always scared after seeing The Godfather of what she can do, what she's capable of. I know what your people have done, but you know what? They're not good at fighting. 2 world wars, 0-2. They're like the Met of wars.
Our people aren't great at world wars.
No. Well, the Jews win. They just take a lot of hits.
Very true. But they keep coming back.
Well, he's an Italian.
I don't think we
Jew.
won. I think we were just kind of like saved.
But we were on the winning team at the end. Like we were just like, cool. It's like when you liberate a town on The Walking Dead. Anyway, enough about that. Sorry, we get off topic a little bit. Beano, so what do you have? Tell us about you. Like, how long have you been promoting? Have you competed? What's your training? What your hit? Who are you?
Who is Beano? Well, I've actually been in the bodybuilding world. I competed in my very first bodybuilding show in 1993. It's a small local small show, and lucky enough, I won the entire show, which was not saying a whole lot. Again, it was a small show, but I was bitten by the bug at that point. Had a great mentor at the time. He was a guy that was a national level bodybuilder that was headed to be professional. Unfortunately, things didn't work out on his end. He ended up passing away before that could happen. But he was probably the spark in my bodybuilding career, so to speak. His name was Patrick Beatty. He was very well known here in Tennessee at the time, back in the day. His nickname was Oz. But anyway, that's kind of the beginning of my story there, and competed for many, many years, and competed. I was actually one of the first guys that was invited to do the very first Arnold Amateur. I was 1 out of 15 guys in the world that competed in the middleweight class in the very first Arnold Amateur. So that's one of my little accolades I can put in there. And it was a cool ride. I had a great time. I competed up until 2011 and retired. It was time to hang up the trunks for this guy, but loved every minute of it. And I know you and I cross paths not only with the KNOX Classic, the bodybuilding show that we have, but you and I had seen each other several times at the Olympia and the Arnold, and it's always a pleasure to see you guys there. And if I know anybody that grinds hard and really puts the work in, it was you, Mark. So I always looked up to you and how your work ethic was and how you always stayed moving and grooving. So thanks for being an inspiration to a lot of us out there.
I appreciate, likewise. And Matt, if you pull up that comment right there, I want this one. Damn man, you still exist. That's what happens when you've been in this business so long that people subscribe to you like 10 years ago, and then they forget they're subscribed to you, and then they think you don't even do videos anymore.
And then all of a sudden you do a podcast.
I got 2 YouTubes a day, and nobody knows I'm on there.
Well, this comment's coming from Facebook.
Oh man, Facebook. Yeah, honestly, I don't go on Facebook. Facebook's I don't know if you've seen this, Beano, but it became Trump versus Hillary, and it still hasn't stopped. And I'm just like, I can't do this. And I'm like watching families fight. Yeah. And I don't go on Facebook. So what I do, if Instagram, automatically sends it to Facebook, I'll do it, but I won't. I'll read the comments occasionally, and even then I'm just deleting really mean comments.
I
It's
agree.
like Facebook is a dumpster fire. I can't do Facebook. I can do TikTok even, but I can't do Facebook. I can't do Facebook. I can't. What social medias do you use right now, Beano? What's your favorite?
So honestly, I'm an old school guy, as you can imagine, but
MySpace. He's doing MySpace.
yeah, actually, yeah, I did do MySpace back in the day, of course, but no, it's honestly, for promotion wise for the KNOX Classic, we use Instagram and Facebook only. I know there's plenty of other tools out there, but those have been most effective for us. And for me personally, I also have a personal page out there that, I keep in touch with old school mates and folks that when I wasn't with my bodybuilding career, I was lucky enough to travel all over the world with a couple of well-known industry supplement companies and equipment companies. And, not that I was ever, a professional, but I built a decent little fan base by shaking hands and meeting different people across the world. So I'm lucky enough to stay in touch with a lot of those folks across the pond and everywhere else. So that's probably the only two that really are relevant to us for the KNOX Classic.
What's really great is you talk about a name, like people know Beano. Like everybody know, Beano. If like, hey, so I live in Tennessee and I've looked at weights before. Oh, do you know my friend Beano? Beano's like, no clue who that guy is. Never heard of that guy. It's like name dropping Beano because it's a name. Like, hey, have you ever heard Matt? Like, we have 5 Matts in our company alone. I think. Like, I know too many. Like, even our home builder's name is Matt. I'm like, so we have Builder Matt. We have Matt because he has Matt. Then we got Tuck. Because Marano's not easy as Tuck.
Tuck is easy.
Tuck is so easy. I mean, just an easy name. But the thing is, so speaking of retiring and knowing when to hang up your trunks, I think I have a problem, because I'm like, I
have a question.
Yeah.
Because as of last week when we were training with Courtney, you were officially done.
I was officially
you were done.
Yeah.
So I need what happened between then and this moment. You're getting back on stage at the KNOX Classic.
Okay, you've competed before.
Horribly, yes.
And Beano, you've competed before. Yeah. And there's a threshold of, and I'm not dieting right now. I'm just living life. Like I do track my food, but I've only been doing it the last 4 days. But it's not like I track it. At the end of the day, I'll be like, what did I eat today? Yeah. And I'll write it down just so I know where I'm at, just because I'm curious. And I mean, so have you that level of body fat? You used to get pretty lean, Beano, if I yes. recall the pictures. There's a level of body fat you hit where you suddenly become a jerk and you suddenly become a dick. And I hit that level of body fat on Tuesday when I was doing a video shoot. And Mike Rashid, my partners, Mike Rashid and Sean Tarbali were like, bro, you have no fucking fat. Like, you are beyond, you'll be the leanest guy on any stage in the country. And I'm like, why do I feel so good? Like, I'm running around and you see me now. Like, I obviously don't act like them. And I'm like, I have veins coming out of areas that I don't have veins. I'm like, I didn't know they existed. And I'm like, and then when Mike said it, Mike's like, you might as well just do it. And Mike's not a competing guy. He thinks it's kind of stupid, but he's like, why not? And then Sean's like, why not? And I'm like, So the litmus test, I'm like, you know what? We always support local bodybuilding shows. I'm like, I'm going to be at the KNOX Classic anyway. Why don't I just not prep and just get on stage? Well, I mean, I prep every day. I mean, I don't get out of shape. That's the thing. Like, a lot of these guys doing your show, no offense, doing any show, they need a show to tighten.
You don't have an off season.
There is no off season, Doug Miller.
Right.
Sorry. I just stole his line. But I mean, for me, it's just a lifestyle. It's how I feel best. And I have irritable bowel syndrome. So if I can't just go out and eat fried chicken, or else everybody's going to know I ate fried chicken. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
So for me, it doesn't take much. It's just a matter of getting on stage. And, the key is just not changing anything and just going in and eating a couple extra carbs before the show. And I'm like, well, Beano, what if I think I want to compete? Like, oh yeah, I have a show. I'm like, cool. And then I'm like, I got a problem. I'm married and my wife is anti me competing because in the past I might not have, that area where you become a jerk. I was that guy. Like, I became a jerk. So then Katie's like, okay. She just said, okay. And I'm like, what do I do now? So I have no obstacle. And I'm like,
You were looking for the no, so you had the out.
well, I don't think I want an out. I don't know if I like look, I'm being real, Beano, and I want to get into more about what, but let's this is like kind of me saying I'm competing at the KNOX Classic and I want everybody to go, and I'm also going to do something awesome. I have a whole post written up. I'll send it to you. It's really awesome. So basically they come to the show, they come to the outright booth, they register for a chance to win a year supply of MTS Whey and 12 boxes of outright bars. And I'm thinking of something even bigger, but everybody who comes to the booth gets a free ball fill that we could do an event at where people just show up.
What about Chloe's gym? She's in Knoxville.
Shit, you're right, Chloe. Yeah. Never mind, we'll do that shit in Knoxville. Glad I didn't post it. Thanks. So we have Frankie's Body Shop.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll go to Frankie's. Chloe, by the way, we're having an event. I forgot
Chloe, we're bringing a squad.
Oh man. So I want basically my goal, and I wrote this up, man. I was on a flight and I couldn't sleep. I want everybody to know that everything that bodybuilding was, everything wrong about bodybuilding has been corrected. I think Jim Mannion, I think Weinberger, I think Sizemore locally, I think all these guys, like there were bad apples in the NPC and they're gone now.
Yeah.
And now you have everything they used to accuse the NPC of. Normally, if you get beat, it's because a judge thought someone else looked better than you. And I know this now because I've judged over 50 shows in various organizations. And generally speaking, there's always someone or somebody's girlfriend really mad at me. And it's because either the guy was really lean and just had shitty genetics, or, the guy just didn't die. It's usually you didn't diet enough. I mean, let's be real. Hey, how many shows you judge, Beano? 2,000, 3,000?
A lot of shows. And I actually just had this conversation not long ago, Mark, that somebody was asking me, I competed in such and such show, and would you take a look at my pictures and critique me? And of course, I'm always that guy that's been super honest with them, and I'll break down the comparison and this and that, and then they're like, well, how did these other guys beat me? And the hard thing for competitors to understand is that from a judge's perspective, we're actually judging what's on stage in front of us at that very moment.
Yes.
And it's hard for competitors to understand that. There are guys that can come in, like you said, super shredded, super lean, but they have no muscle. And then there's a guy that could be standing next to them that has great symmetry, great shape, and probably another week of dieting that he could do. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of moving up to the national level, who would you choose to take that spot? And those are hard judgment calls, but those things come into play. So as a competitor, you need to understand that judges are judging what's in front of them at the very moment. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Mark, but as a judge back in the day, I've even seen guys do crossover in other classes and come out looking one way in one class and come back out maybe 30 minutes, an hour later after they've had time to eat or drink and look totally different and harder and fuller within that hour period because they took more time to prepare themselves. And their placing was a little bit different compared to what they were in the class before. So have you ever noticed that? Have you ever seen that happen, Mark?
The crossovers have brought a whole different scenario. So I used to notice prejudging and judging was the big one. And a lot of times, I'll tell you what, there's two competitors and one is way more predominant than the other one. The first one, and this is very rare, a guy gets really lean and doesn't fill out. Mm-hmm. That is the unicorn. It is. Because why? Most people don't fucking get lean enough. I'm just being real, man.
You're right.
And that's my number one. Look, I've had critiques. Like I had a guy at a physique competition. Physique. It was a ANBF show. When Sean put on the Orange County. And dude, this guy was shredded. Like this guy, you could see his fucking heart beating. Like this guy was shredded. But he came in like 7th. And he lost to some guys who weren't in as good shape, but it was physique. Mm-hmm. And his girlfriend's like, he put in more work. I'm like, yeah, but like wrong division, and that's a rare guy.
Right.
Because everybody else was about, I'll tell you this. In my opinion, 95% of guys who get on any stage from NPC to IFBB have another 4 weeks of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be real. Now, if you have a guy, let's say Brandon Curry, or let's say even Phil. Phil was lean at the Olympia. Phil, if it wasn't for what I thought was his surgically repaired stomach that needs more time to heal, and I'll give my opinion on that in a second because I got a lot to talk about today, man. I'm glad you're here, Beano, because because this is bodybuilding nerd stuff. You know, I think that Brandon was so lean that his main objective is he didn't fill out enough. And he came in peaked, and Rami came in not peaked. And as Rami posed, Rami got better, and better. And Brandon got flatter and flatter and flatter and flatter. So by the time it was coming down to the nitty gritty, Rami was looking sharper because Rami came in with a film of water, and he just didn't look his best.
If it was judged by first steps on stage, I think Brandon had him. But as the show continued, definitely, yeah.
I don't think there's anyone who's going to argue that, other than if they're going to argue leg size, if they're going to argue conditioning and presentation. I think Brandon obviously had better presentation. The guy's opposing
For
machine.
sure, yeah.
But Rami's just big, nasty. If he would have not hardened up, he would have lost that show. But he got better as it goes on. So that's the delicate balance of prep. So for someone like me who has a super fast metabolism, naturally lean, I need to err on the side of, like, it's hard to spill over when you don't drink water. But, you know, a lot of guys, they come in and they try to overcorrect things. They try to drop too much water. At the end of the day, man, you're too fat. Yes. But I've seen literally people get on stage, look like shit, start posing, and things start coming out. You're like, whoa. Right. And that just means they didn't pump up enough. Then you see someone like, Brandon probably didn't do this, where they over pump up. Yeah. Like that moment, like you have the average competitor at nationals, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's like the average competitor is like 15 seconds on stage. The guys who get like don't even get called out, where you do first lineups, 15 seconds. That's a lot of, look at everybody goes, those judges are assholes. Do you know how much pressure it is on a judge to judge a guy in 15 seconds?
Yeah, it's tough.
It is. It is. But so moving on to this, yeah, I will be doing the KNOX Classic, and I'm actually gonna just my plans. I'm 205 right now, so I'm a light heavyweight, and then probably carb up to around 210. That's the goal. So yeah, so don't weigh me the day of the show. There's no scale allowed on Saturday.
No, not at all. Have to check in on Friday. So what that weight says on Friday is the weight that you go into the show with.
Can I weigh in Wednesday? So NPC, where do you see the NPC going in the next year? Where do you see the trajectory? Do you think bodybuilding is growing? What do you see?
So, I've had this discussion with a few other promoters. I mean, from a bodybuilding show perspective and getting bodybuilders to compete in your show, the KNOX Classic is one of those bodybuilding shows. It's been around for almost 40 years. I mean, it's been around for a long time. And we're known for bodybuilders to come and compete. Now, that doesn't mean that we have men's physique in all the other classes, bikini and figure and blah, blah, blah. The key is, I think it's the perception of each show at the end of the day. And we've always just been a great bodybuilding show. As far as the NPC goes, one person that I think that's really stepped up to bat is Tyler Mannion. Tyler's done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, really starting to get more of a uniform across the board with the NPC, which needed to be done because, I mean, if you look at the number of shows that we have across the nation, there are a lot of shows across the nation, and which is great for competitors because they have many choices to try to prep and get ready for. But there are just a few people that have come on board, and of course, Steve and Jim and those guys, they've done a phenomenal job as well. But you got these state chairmen, Gary Udit, all these people that are around, and then you've got some of these promoters that have been around forever as well that have just been doing phenomenal jobs. So, last but not least, when it comes to NPC, we've got to have the competitors. I mean, that's what makes or breaks us as a promoter. We've got to have you guys to come and compete in our shows. We also need you guys to register early. That's another thing that
Oh my God! Yes.
Waiting to the last minute. I know some people have to play that, but going back to your point, Mark, of staying in shape longer throughout the years, the key, and you can pretty much step in any show at any time. So there's a lot of things that we could go over from a promoter's perspective that could be more valuable to us to help put on a better show. And then it comes down to people like yourself, Mark, that have always been huge supporters of bodybuilding and that are willing to use, your resources to help us put together great competitor bags and things like that for our competitors. And that's one thing that KNOX is known for. We always make sure that every person leaves there with something in hand, whether it, be a couple of great goodie bags or whatever it may be. We want people to come and enjoy themselves and have probably one of the best experiences of their lives.
Yeah, I told Kate, and the thing is me, I'm an emotionally fired up guy. Like, and so when there are things I'll point out when things aren't going wrong, but I'll also at the same time point out when things are going right. And I've been on the sidelines and, just kind of looking in. I haven't competed in the NPC since 2013 when I won the Virginia, the max muscle class, that show. And that was the last one I did. But then I accidentally won my NABA Pro card. And then I was going to do nationals that year. And they're like, well, you got to give up your NABA Pro card to do it. I'm like, but I just won it. And then, and then what happened is like, no excuses, but like, so I'm like, no, I'm going to keep this shit a year. I'm just going to enjoy this moment. And then like my marriage started having things and business. And I'm like, nah, competing is much more of a burden, and it's not worth the child support and alimony that I would have to pay if this didn't work out, which is why I'm like, I want to, but yeah, I got to ask Katie. Like, people don't understand there's a background to that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't throw on like running businesses and raising kids and coaching and all I do, and then be like, and then get to that level of body fat. But for some reason, for the last few years, like I just pretty much stay lean, and now I've just become leaner, and it's like, all right. So I want to address one thing, which is a lot of people's things. Like, you hear a lot of people talk about politics and bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. And do you think that is still an endemic issue to bodybuilding? Do you think it's still a problem? Do you think it ever was? Do you think it was regional? I think it was based on the show, or do you think it's just people want to see their best person? When do you think it's a little of each?
When I judged, I can say this. I know every panel that I ever judged on, there wasn't that. Of course, you have these people that sit in the crowd that come at the night show and they're like, how did that guy lose? And I'm like, well, did you sit through prejudging? Did you see what was judged? And most of the time the answer is no, I didn't make it to prejudging. Well, that's when the judging actually happens. And but as far as the politics go, I mean, I've never witnessed it in my personal times being a judge. I don't know if that happens, to be honest, because I'm not privy to that information. But I would hope that it's not. And again, I think with some of the changes that have been made across the board through the NPC, I really feel like that they're really making a big move to where people can't keep saying that. I mean, it's just gotten to the point. Yeah,
Tyler is OG. I still have not. I think I met him in passing a long time. The kid was probably 4 years old. I can't say enough for what this new group has done. And if anybody, here's when I realized that bodybuilding wasn't as political, at least not as widespread as people said it was. I was judging, remember the USBF? I don't even know if they're still around.
I don't either.
They were one of the predominant natural organizations in the Northeast. Like, their shows would turn out 300 people. Yeah. And Kent Beerley was running a show, and I was judging it with a bunch of people. I didn't know these people, right? So I go to the show, and there was a guy who actually, I think he won or he placed second in Universe. He was an NPC guy. So again, if he was natural that day, I mean, let's just say that polygraphs aren't like, he was obviously a fish out of water, right?
Right.
Impressive dude. And I couldn't remember his name, and I wouldn't put him on blast anyway. But anyway, so he was going up against, these really shredded, these natural guys get so shredded. Like, they get that, because that's all that you can't, I mean, they get shredded. And I'm like, all right, so I'm judging. I'm excited to see this guy. Like, I'm a judge, and I've seen this guy on the internet. I've seen his Instagram. Guy's just a beast. Like, he's not just not just a questionable natty, but he's a big, impressive dude. Like I was as a fan, and he came out on stage. He went and he hit a thigh pose. He slammed his thigh and his belly jiggled. And I'm like, ugh, right there. So he ended up placing fourth. And so I didn't even think twice about it. You know, I went home, and this is when Facebook was like the place. Like everybody was on Facebook. There was no other social media. And he put us on blast, like just put us on blast, and said that we didn't let him win because he's an NPC guy. And I'm like, I'm an NPC guy. I just did this show because Kent's my bro. You know, I just judged this because he's my friend, you know? And it's like, and so he got completely butthurt, called us out, made a couple personal attacks. And so I had to do a response video on my YouTube, which at the time was bigger than it is now. And I'm like, look, dude, honestly, I don't think he got fourth either. I actually had him seventh on my scorecard. Because he had everybody outweighed by about 80 pounds of muscle. Like it was crazy. This dude was like 230 at 5'9", going up against guys who are 150.
Right.
5'9".
Yeah, he was that unicorn that you were talking about earlier.
He was a beast, but he didn't take it seriously, and he was fat. So, you know, and it didn't. He's like, he threatened to fight me, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's not the first time, but that's when I realized that judges can never win, because of course everybody who saw it online, and also people don't realize judges are looking up, like right at a physique, like you're looking here, whereas everybody else is 10 rows back at least, looking straight on. Right. It's a completely different experience. You can't see the detail. You can't see the striations. You can't see the tan quality. You can't see any of that stuff from the crowd. And you certainly can't see any of that stuff on internet pictures. Because I'll tell you what, Phil Heath.
Especially back in those days when cameras were not quite what they are now.
But Phil Heath in photos is an injustice to Phil Heath in real life.
Sure.
Phil Heath in real life has this muscle belly quality that you only get live.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of folks that you see that sit out in the crowd that you know that they just can't fathom what we're seeing. And you're right, being up close and seeing the detail and things that we can see up that close makes a huge difference. And of course, we've all been to shows that the lighting is either super dominant or really, really crappy or it's just right, you know? So those things come into play. The amount of sheen or oil or whatever that competitors put on backstage, that's another issue that I've seen. That actually personally happened to me in a show several years ago, and I let this group, you know, put it on for me without being in front of a mirror, and it was too much. So by the time I went out on stage, I was glossy looking, so it didn't help my physique.
Oh man, you look like if flash goes off, you're just like a bright light. Oh, yeah. Like, oh my God. You know, that's so that kind of there's a lot of things at play, Tan. Like people don't understand, like bringing out the right package, there's a lot to it. And you're literally getting judged at most for 10 minutes. Like the hardest pose down, they had one man, like it was a prejudge. They ran us through, it had to be 20-30 minutes, and it was like running a marathon, you know. But so if you're a judge, you're a promoter, you're a competitor, what would be the top pieces of advice you'd give to someone getting into competing?
Well, you know, probably the place that I would start the most that you know, we try to hold a lot of, you know, posing classes and clinics and things like that to help our competitors that are preparing for our shows. Awesome. One of the most important pieces that I see with first-time competitors is, you know, they always say, well, this is my first time, I don't know what to do. Well, I would highly suggest that you look for a great coach. Yes. And when I say look for a great coach, you need to ask around. You need to talk to people around your circle and outside your circle about certain people that are judging. Unfortunately, at this time that there's a lot of so-called coaches, and there's a lot of really, really good people that are out there doing the right thing when it comes to coaching people. Mm-hmm. And then I've seen a lot of personal trainers that have tried to coach, and it's two different worlds. Coaching for a bodybuilding show and getting their clients together is totally different than, you know, taking them through a workout at the gym. So in my opinion, one of the first and foremost things for a first-time competitor is Find you a great coach. Find a show that or if you've never been to a show, find a show and go see how it plays out, how it works. At least from the crowd perspective, and kind of get a little bit of comfortableness of how things would flow. And then, get ready for your own competition. Set that date on your calendar. Go ahead and register. Sign up for that show. That way it gets you prepared mentally, physically. It gives you that goal to shoot for. And then once you're at the show, I experienced it when I first started competing, were all the what ifs. What if this, or what do I do about that, or da 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 da. Once you go across that stage for the very first time, all that stuff goes away. And then you're going to be so much more better off in season. Plus, you've had great advice from a great coach and somebody that's walked you through the process a lot better.
Matt, do you have any advice? So you competed poorly.
Very poorly.
You said it. I didn't. I've seen your picture.
I competed once and I came in dead last.
Yeah, but it was a really tough show.
It's the show that ended up now being the New York Pro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they moved it out of the city into White Plains, which is my hometown, and I competed in that same venue. And
all right. So what would be the advice you would give?
I mean, if you cheat yourself at all, it's going to show on stage. Like if you don't put in the effort and you don't stick to the plan and you it's only going to affect your outcome on stage. It doesn't really fuck with anyone else.
Brian Whitaker, a great natural pro in the WMBF, had a great one. He's like, well, if you think you're lean enough, lose 10 more pounds. and I hate to go there, but maybe my shows were just a bunch of fat people, but like every time I'm a judge, my first, like when they come up, so what could I do better? I'm like, give it 6 more weeks. It's like you didn't diet enough. And there are some people who come in, but very few. And even at the pro level, I'm like, dude, this is your job. Like you're a pro, like get shredded. Like that's the one thing you control. You can't control your calf insertions. You can't control a lot of things, but you can control how shredded you are. I know it's a delicate balance at that level in being full and being shredded, but not really. If you get lean, you can pretty much eat carbs until until your eyes pop out. You're not going to get fat. Like you have a day of carb loading, like unless you're carb loading for like a week or you overdo something. And it's just like, just get lean, put in the work, suffer a little bit, like enjoy the process. But I'm with you on the coach. A lot of people do it on their own. And then they're just asking. And if you have a coach, here's a big one. If you have a coach, listen to that coach. Don't listen to 20 coaches.
I was about to echo
your
that.
Coach.
Yes, for sure. And we've seen it 100 times, Mark. These kids, I call them kids, so they're mostly younger than I am. But they start prepping for a show. They're listening to their coach, and then they start making these signs of changes, and they start really looking good in the gym. And next thing you know, Joe from the corner starts coming over and starts giving his advice. And then, Lisa decides, well, maybe I need to give you some advice as well. Do exactly what Mark just said. Stick with the plan. It may not be the correct plan at the end of the day, but stick with the plan. Make sure you follow it through to the end. And the other important piece that I see for first-time competitors that they do not do is journal. Journal your steps, your daily steps of how you've eaten, what you've drank, the amount you drank, how your training was that day. Was it good, bad, and different? Make sure you put all that down because that's your Bible of reference from now on. If you're going to keep competing, make sure you keep that journal up to date.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on the journaling when you start, because you got to be able to make those adjustments in that prep. And another thing is, your body's dynamic. So every prep will be different. And that's why hiring a coach who can identify that. And also if you are experienced enough or smart enough to do it alone, and this is something I do, always have a third eye. Have someone to look in, because I'm a guy who will undercarb, undereat because I was a fat kid. So I'm always afraid of getting fat. You know what I mean? Like I'll eat, but like, I'm like, I'd rather be a little bit flat, but then you come in just looking, like you're in one of those.
Pancakes.
Yeah, just horrible. So, filling out, because also you don't realize when you're posing, if you're in prejudging, you're posing for 20 minutes. Let's say hopefully you're in the top flight. You're posing for 15, 20 minutes, and you're going to wring out those carbs, like wringing out a shirt full of sweat after washing it. You're like,
you're using that energy.
And it's all coming out. So you need the carbs, and you need someone to kind of push you through that process. Another thing is that peaking, here's a good one. Peaking isn't magical. If you're not already in shape, if you can't peaking, if it improves peak. So when you're playing with these magical voodoo peak things, like, different things I won't mention on YouTube, right? Like it can improve you by 5% or it can screw you up by 50%.
Right.
Always be conservative with your prep. What I do, I don't even cut water.
Yeah. If a prep is going right, do you really need a peak week?
You need carbs. I will say you need carbs and fat.
Okay.
You can, it, as someone who's done, but I will say it's dependent. Like one of the best I ever looked is I won the light heavy class at the Carolina Clash back in the day. I think it was 2009. And I literally was just at the show handing out samples and they're like, hey, do you want to compete? And I'm like, sure. And I went and spray tanned and I ended up winning, but that was, and I didn't have any carbs with me. I was just eating like salmon and broccoli. Like, cause I was just like, whatever. I was just chilling and I don't have the biggest appetite, So I'm like, okay, cool. But it was, sometimes, but there was no stress. Another thing is if you have a coach and he's telling you what to do, you don't stress.
Right.
Trust in a coach. You just, you got 200 grams of carbs, you eat your 200 grams of carbs, you go. You don't have to worry. I wonder if I could fit in another 30. No, coach said 200. You're eating 200.
Yeah. And I've also, when I used to coach people back in the day, you always get those emails or those text messages that say, well, can I do this today? Or can I do that today? And generally my response was, is it on the paper? Does it say you can do that on the paper? Well, no. Okay. Well, then there's your answer. Why did you ask me that question? And not trying to be a butt about it, but there's a process. There's a science behind it. We can all agree. So leave those questions alone. If it's not written down and your coach is not suggesting you do it, don't ask and don't do it. It's as simple as that. And like you said, when you get towards the end of your prep, listen, if you're getting in great shape, if it's not broke, don't fix it. There are slight adjustments that you can make through that peak week that will only make you better if you do it correctly. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Another piece of advice that, goes back to the journaling, Mark, wouldn't you agree that you've competed in shows and then after the show that evening, you went and ate a few things and drank a few things and got up the next morning and looked freaking insane. Well, journal that, put that down, because that could be the piece that you're missing that you might want to add on your Friday evening or your Saturday morning before you go do. So everybody differs, as you know.
Well, I'm actually, I always, if I wake up the day after a show and I look worse than I did at the show, it means I did the right thing.
Yeah,
it means I pushed it right to where it needed to go pushed. One time I lost, and I lost the show. I shouldn't have won, but I was upset because it was the most shredded I ever got at that time. I think it was like 2008 or some shit like, right. And I remember I was like fucking devastated. Like I was emotional. So we went to Outback Steakhouse and I ate every single thing on the menu. Like I ate every appetizer and it had to be $1,000 fucking bill at Outback, which is hard to do.
Yeah.
And I ate everything that Outback's not known for. I didn't eat a steak, but I did have some ribs and
did you have a blooming onion?
I couldn't breathe. Yeah. I had like two of them. I couldn't breathe. And I woke up the next morning and my ankles were like the edema. So what I always tell people is now your show's over. Don't do that. If you did that, that means that you restricted yourself a little too much during your diet, because and also right now I'm usually so sick of eating from the carb up that I'm like the day after the show, I'm like, I just don't want to eat.
Yes.
I just want to go to bed. I'll have a little dessert, like some a pancakes or something, like IHOP. Last time I went to IHOP, after I won my pro card, I went to IHOP. I didn't even finish my meal. I was like, I'm good. They're like, what are you you should be celebrating. I'm like, dude, I'm a puke. Like, I'm tired of eating. Like, I've eaten more goddamn sweet potatoes than I care to, and then I care to even, talk about and I had no sweet tooth because the whole day was sweet potatoes and fucking pop out of pop. Yeah. And then before getting on stage, here's the magical thing though. The magical thing during pump, I'm giving away my secrets here. during pump up, you got to have a Snickers or a Twix, man. Salt, fat, and carbs while you're pumping, like right before that fit, because you want to pump up about 15 minutes till your group goes out. That's the sweet spot. So you start, you take in a little bit of just a little bit of liquid, and then you pop in that Twix or that Snickers bar, and it's like candy trend.
Mine was Reese's cups.
Okay, Reese's is what everybody else ate. I just want to go against the grain.
No, you're good. You're good.
Butterfinger again.
Butterfinger, I mean, it is, and that was actually it's Homer Simpson shit right there. I and I was like, won't you know, right, bar? I'm like, because it's before a show. I'm having a fucking Snickers bar. Because I sell the greatest tasting whole food protein bar on the market.
You need that really bad sugar.
It needs to be really bad, really processed.
Super
I need
processed.
some caramel and nougat. Now, Reese's peanut butter cup, I can make an argument for an outright bar, but you can't replace the nastiness of a Twix. Like, what is even in that thing? What are the
caramel and chocolate? And that's all I want to know about it.
Well, the thing
that'll last till the next fucking ice age, bro. Which, by the way, depending on what news media it could be tomorrow, could be next month. Yeah,
true. But hey, one thing that I'd like to add there that you mentioned, just that little bit of water that you're talking about. That's one piece that I see that a lot of competitors backstage are afraid to do. It's you've got to have something to help that dilation process, and a little bit of water backstage is not going to really change your physique. So I'm not saying exactly.
And your muscle is mostly water, and that's why I like sweet potato as a carb up food.
And if you're lean enough, you don't have any fat to hold on to the water, so it's not.
Well, so rice soaks. If something gets wet, you throw it in a bucket of rice, it dries off.
Exactly.
You throw it in a bucket of mashed sweet potatoes, it gets wetter. Yeah. So if you eat something, that's why I always like sweet potatoes. And also remember that sweet potatoes have 600 milligrams of potassium per 8 ounces, which if taken in pill form would kill you. So not only are you getting in the liquid, but your body's getting something that'll prevent cramping. Mm-hmm. That's another thing, man. I know you're old enough to remember Paul Dillette cramping on the Olympia stage.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, he was doing a little more than sweet potatoes, but that was horrible.
Yeah. And then, he was in full dehydration, as we both know. So, I mean, his body was having a massive reaction, and we've seen other bodybuilders since, professional bodybuilders, go through some of the same effects. And unfortunately, we've even lost a few of those bodybuilders that push their bodies to the limits like that.
Well, the thing is, and I don't know how deep we want to go into this, but I'll keep it very general. A lot of times people will vilify things that bodybuilders might do to achieve the next level of performance, when that's not what kills them, at least short term. Like, obviously there's other deleterious health effects to things, but what has gotten bodybuilders in the past is the overuse of things like diuretics or insulin. So that's something that I don't know much about. I never got deep into it. But if you look at like what happens, it's not from what the media will say. It's from things that really are just meant that don't need, they're not needed is what I'm saying. And some of and everybody's, well, the pros are using it. I don't know, man. I know all the pros, and like there are some, but like most of them are just better than you. Like, same reason I can go outside and play basketball all day long. LeBron's still going to D me up. Right? These guys are genetic freaks. I can train all I want. I know what I bring. I bring conditioning, and I bring some level of, okay, that's some quality muscle, and I bring good muscle size for my build, for my joints. But you put me up against Brandon Curry, I look like a fucking idiot. Like, there's different levels to this shit. Like, there's minor league baseball, and then there's fucking the All-Star game.
The majors, yes, exactly.
Yeah. And know your place too. Like, don't make bodybuilding, becoming a pro bodybuilder, your dream if you're not killing it. How do I put this? So my opinion's always been, I know you guys give national qualifiers to the top 2, and this might be bad for the pocketbooks. This is my advice personally. If you can't completely dominate a regional show, unless you're just doing it to get the qualification, unless you can completely dominate a local show, you go to nationals, you got 50 states, however many shows, you got thousands of competitors spread out over multiple days. Like, you need to own your region. So you need to win shows like the KNOX. You need to win shows like state. You need to win shows. You need to win those. And then when people go like, hey, Stop winning these fucking shows. Give someone else a chance. That's when you can go on and be like, all right, I'm going to go try my hand at nationals, because nationals is a tough. I mean, these guys, pictures don't do these guys justice.
No, not at all. And I'll say this. I mean, whenever I first started competing in the Arnold Amateur, we were competing against guys all over the world. And
same, yeah.
And I'll tell you this, and you experienced this, I'm sure, Mark.
I did the Arnold Amateur, yeah.
The quality of those guys that show up for that, it's ridiculous, man. And the unfortunate thing, and well, maybe it's not unfortunate because it just made me better as a competitor, was I figured out that some of those guys were professionals in other leagues in other countries. So they had already, achieved that professional status. But still, it felt good to me to know that I was one of those 15 guys in the middleweight class at that time to get up there and compete. I mean, that was an honor to me. And of course, I got to meet Arnold, which was another, bucket list thing for myself, just because I grew up reading his books and looking at
Arnold.
Yeah.
He's Arnold.
He was the guy.
Yeah, the Arnold class. So I remember I did so that's one of the reasons I was hesitant to compete in anything, because I've already been a pro in another league and I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't basically, it was because social media. I don't want people going, oh, so now you're going in this one. Because if I lose, then people are like, oh, you suck now. And then if I win, people are like, oh, well, fuck you. You've been a pro before. So I'm like, that was part of my whole hesitancy to even get on stage. Now I'm like, just screw it, man. I want to have some fun, and I want to display the years of training. Like it's been 2015 was my pro when I competed professionally.
Mm-hmm.
I want to show people what I've been doing for the last 6 years, Like,
well, let's talk about the elephant in the room here, Mark.
Matt, he's not that fat.
No, I believe if I'm not mistaken, someone stepped on the KNOX Classic stage in 2009.
Yeah. I don't agree with the placings on that one, but I look back, I didn't bring it. Well, honestly, the guy who won just had a torn bicep. I'm not saying I should have won.
Yeah,
I'm saying that someone else should have won, but I understand he had a great physique, but he had a torn bicep and the thing attached right here. I understand you weren't judging, but I understand I didn't see, I just saw him backstage. I didn't see him in action.
Yeah.
And this is before Instagram blew up everybody after the show.
For sure.
I believe I placed 5th. And I think if I was to judge myself, I'd say 3rd. And I'm not saying I should have won the show.
Right.
There's some shows I should have lost. And that was before I really learned how to be a bodybuilder.
Right. You were fresh into it at that point. And
that was 2007. I mean, that was one of my first shows, and I wasn't conditioned. That was before I realized. Now, then I came into the Mountaineer and was just in the Clash, and I came in just shredded. That's when I started in the Gold's Classic. But when I did that show, I had no idea that my strength was conditioning. So I came in fat. Like, it is what it is. But, again, like when you're competing, you're an idiot. You think you look better than you do because you're biased. And now the difference is, now that I'm older, I think I look worse than I do. So I think it's even better. I'm like, die, man. Like, hey, you're not that bad, because you get older and you got that humility.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then you said it clearly the other day. I mean, for you, it's total redemption. It's time to come back to the KNOX stage and show all the hard work that you put in over the years, man, and let people understand, hey, look, I'm here, I'm back, and this is what I look like today. And, I can appreciate that because I did see you then, and I see you now. And that goes back to the work ethic thing that you and I talked about earlier in the show is, dude, you got some work ethic, and there's a lot of people that would kill to have half the work ethic that you have.
Well, I mean, I'm lucky to have grown up in a situation where I had to work, and hopefully my kids get some of that. But I'll tell you this, it's not even about redemption. I have nothing to redeem. I got back there. I don't have redemption at the KNOX Classic. Honestly, what I want to do, and I got my post right here. I actually wrote it on Evernote on my phone. It's a great app, by the way. And it's kind of cool because it's really what I feel, and this is my reason. This is what I wrote. I want to support the NPC. I love bodybuilding. Sure, I've talked a lot of trash in the past, but things have changed. The bad apples are gone. Shows are as fair as a subjective sport can be, and the local economy needs activity. I truly feel that after what we went through in 2020 and part of 2021, with you not being able to put on as big of a show or put on any show, with the economy being hit, with people trying to you know, people not being able to see each other, people not being able to get out, nowhere to go. I think that if I can do my part to put more butts in the seats, if I could do my part to bring what I might be able to bring to help bring more attention to the sport, to help bring more attention to bodybuilding, to help bring more attention to the local economy, bring more people into Knoxville to eat at the restaurants, stay in the hotels. Honestly, that's my driving force. I know that sounds like I'm making that shit up, but it really isn't.
I have to agree with you.
I really love the sport. Like the sport is, it does so much good for people, you know, and I want to promote the good part of bodybuilding and that you can do this as a hobby without letting it take over your life.
Did we lose Beano?
I think we lost Beano. Oh, there he is. Are you back? Are you with us, Beano?
We can no longer hear Beano.
I think you might have to sign in again. I think we're going to go for the re-sign. Going for the re-sign. Do we have any questions we get to while we're here?
We have not had a question.
Oh, the Arnold Olympia one. Shane. Steve.
Oh, there we go.
Steve. Mark, going to the Arnold Olympia. I think I recall him saying something about having a booth.
Worth the cost.
Here's the deal. With Brandon on our squad now, and with the outright bar being so easily sampleable, I do believe that they do have a place. So we will be at the Arnold. Arnold's not having a show this year. My bad. Arnold's not having an expo.
No, they're just doing the show.
Yeah. So I will be at the Arnold to watch Brandon. No, Brandon's not going to be there either. No, we're not going to be at the Arnold. Well, I might be there. And we're not going to be, and we are going to, okay, we're not going to be at the Arnold as a booth because there are no booths, but we are going to be at the Olympia with a booth. I already bought it. Ritual AM restock. You got Nate there. So Ritual AM, we adjusted the formula, made it a little bit better, and we also got new packaging. So give us another about 2 to 3 weeks. We just signed off on the final run yesterday. We got it on film too. Beano's back. Beano.
Sorry about that. A little technical difficulty there.
It's all good. So we were going on about local economy, and we got to answer some questions while you were doing that.
Yeah, so I have to echo about the local economy, and that's why my wife and I we still support, you know, bodybuilding. It's you know, we do this because we love it. My wife and I both competed. My wife actually won the overall figure at the KNOX Classic back in the day, and of course, in 2005 I won the Mr. KNOX title in my show. So I mean, it resonates. It means a lot to us, but so does our local economy, our town. You know, here in Knoxville. We're not only doing that, but we want to support, you know, everything around us. And as you know, I mean, we're just half hour from Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area. So, I mean, we want people to come and do our show, but yeah, also go check out a lot of the things that are around us. I mean, Nashville was 2.5 hours at most. And
yeah,
you know, there's so much to do right here where we are located. So I have to agree with you on, you know, let's boost our economy. Let's get out and show some love and see what's going on. And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about the show, Mark, as far as I have a couple of great guests that are coming. One is a very, very good friend of mine. He has just started competing over the past few years. He has some issues. He was in the military. He was in the war and suffered some injuries while he was in the war. So now he's lucky enough to have a service dog that goes around the world with, or actually the nation with him to his bodybuilding shows. Well, it's called Tom and Bing Team.
Yep, I met him. He came to one of our events out here.
So Tom and Bing are actually going to open our show. Bing actually comes out and sits with him during his routine. So I'm excited to see what he's put together. And that was another thing that we added to the show this year. Every one of our classes this year has a hero division. And in that hero division, we're trying to let all of the first responders out there, military, retired or current, anybody that's out there, police officer, nurse, doctor, whatever your work line of work may be, we've created a class for every one of you guys. So come and jump in these classes. We want people to understand, we're putting this show together for everyone. And then the other guest that we have coming is one of the up and coming 212 Mr. Olympia bodybuilders is Derek Lunsford.
Yeah, that guy's great. We've corresponded a few times. Really nice guy. Can't wait to meet him in person. He's
a super nice young man, and we look forward to having him as well. 2020, we were lucky enough to have the little giant killer with us, Sean Clarita. Amazing young man. And so I mean, we've got some really good things going on, Mark. And listen, man, you've always been a true friend to me, and my door has always been open at the KNOX Classic for you to come. And man, when you said that the other day during the text, I was so excited that you were like, "Hey, man, maybe I'll do it." And you saw my response immediately. It was like, "Hey, man, let's do it." So
it's gonna be fun, and I'm even. Part of me doesn't want to do open, but I almost like I'm there. We'll figure it out. I mean, I just kind of want to get out there and bring some people out and have some fun and, see what happens. But it's going to be cool. So where can people find you, Beano?
So for, all the major information, registration, host hotel, tanning, makeup, all that good stuff, they can visit our website, www.knoxclassic.com. That's KNOXClassic.com. And all the information is there. We're also on, like I said earlier, Instagram and Facebook under NPC KNOX Classic. So yeah, man, thank you again for having me on. I'm really excited to have you on my stage. Thank you for all your support, Mark. I can't thank you enough for that as well. So it's just going to be a cool show, man. We're excited to be back.
Yeah, we'll have a good time, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And again, please, if you guys can find the time, no matter where you live, it's going to be a great time. What's the date again, everybody?
It's August 7th. The night show, we actually started a little bit early. We start at 5 p.m. And also our judging will start at 9 o'clock, and we hope to be out there by noon. So looking forward to it. We got some great sponsors, great people coming. Gasp Better Bodies is our title sponsor.
Yep.
So yeah, man, Hamarki Wellness, Hamarki CBD, they're going to be there. So man, again, we've got some great people that are coming to share with us and help make this one fabulous event. And we want every competitor to come and have an amazing time.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for all you do for the sport. I'm Marc Lobliner alongside
Matt Marano.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.